Yeah, it's your boy Ryder up in my studio, Ryder Records or Ryder Rec, as stated on my channel. So today is a continuation of my secret mastering chain revision. I did review some combinations, what follows into what, and some considerations that I think are important for this mastering chain to work, in particular to the placement of the converters. And as well, I have this new toy right here, which is a parametric equalizer, like a boutique one. So it's not a brand per se, but it's done by a knowledgeable person who has been doing it for many years. As an update, I have this Para EQ 4/8, that's the name of the device, and the brand is Long. Let's set a new angle up and show you my things. Right here is the new device that I got, Long Para EQ 4/8, like I said, from a boutique individual who does some nice gear. The only thing with this device is that the potentiometers, they are not stepped. They don't have the little notches, the little stops. It's purely by ear or by whatever metering I have. Just close the eyes and, just set the levels that are appropriate. The nice thing about this equalizer is that it's free roaming. I mean, it's a downside, and as well, it's a good thing about it because I can actually set in between these frequencies right here. So another thing about this equalizer is that the frequency ranges can be set quite extensively. So the low band, which are, mirrored, channel 1 being the left half and channel 2 being the right half, they come with different colors. So the yellows, band 1 being able to work in a bell or shelf mode, as well as the blue, which is the high frequencies. They can also be set from bell to shelf if needed. The other two, the red and the green, they're just the bells. This EQ is proportional. So if you increase the frequency more, the Q factor narrows and it becomes a resonant band. If it's diminished and it's wider, then it becomes very wide. So the setting for any one of these bands is actually, it's not a Q factor per se, so I can refer it to Q, but it's not Q, it's called width here, and it goes from 2.5 to a 0.1, which is not the Q factor. So 0.1 in this device simply means that it's a 0.1 of an octave width, while this DBX right here is 1/3, 1/3 octaves. So, every band is just 1/3 of an octave, while here it would be somewhere around this area. So it brings me to this point to say that this EQ can be narrower than the DBX, or it can be much wider than the DBX, as wide as 2.5 octaves, which I found to be useful, but I kind of try to go between like around 2 to a maybe like more than the minimum. Its gains, which are in orange over here, they live in the range of plus minus 18 decibels, which is a big swing, and there's no way to recondition it. While this device, the DBX, can be set from a range of 6 to a 15 by just, pressing this range button right here. What else can I say about this EQ? Unfortunately, right now it's unbalanced, so I have to do something in my chain to compensate for it because I bought it used and this is the way that it was. It's sounding really, really musical, really good. It was important for me to understand if it should live after DBX or before DBX or any other place. All in all, right now, this is the first device in my chain. DBX has a limiter over here. Actually, let's do that real quick. So DBX has a limiter over here. It's useful, but it's always in the chain. Maybe it's a little bit detrimental to the signal, but I don't feel like this unit is changing the signal too much, so it's pretty much clean. What I used to have before I got the Para EQ, so this was the only EQ unit that I had, and the Elysia envelope can be set to an EQ mode as well if needed, and then that's a really precise high shelving and low shelving equalizer if needed. It can be linked, channel 1 to channel B so that it's perfectly precise, and Elysia are very good in it. It's all computerized, measured, and not done by humans, so there is a little room for error. Right now, I have Para EQ secondary in my rack, but it's the first unit before DBX, because if I needed to change some balances radically, so I needed to boost something like a lot, it was counteracting DBX moves, and I used to only increase frequencies in the DBX for the gain up, and the gains down were happening in contrast. So if I say boosted 200 and 250 plus 500 and 630, then this would be a dip, in contrast. So instead of doing moves like that, I used to, just boost. But now, because Para EQ is first and it has a wider range, the gain range that is, then I can boost much more, and then on DBX I get to fine tune the frequencies, and I can actually now compensate by reducing something. So I find DBX to be a really, really great fine tuner after the Para EQ. As well as DBX has little notches over here, so it's easy for me to just step down half a decibel like that, or maybe 1 decibel like that. While here it's almost impossible to do. Their free roaming, no stops, no notches, no detents. If Para EQ is doing wild swings, then on the DBX I have this limiter. I don't need to set it, but I can set its absolute ceiling, and then if something is gained up, increased drastically, then I can just, kind of like remove. I mean, it helps me to, see that, like, safeguard that ceiling and whatnot. In my chain right now, Para EQ is first. It allows me to do wide brush strokes and tonally set stuff, whether it be wide, medium, or narrow. And then it follows into my DBX 2231 that has a limiter, that has some fine-tune controls, and it's easily recallable via the little detents on the gain inputs. As well as the limiter goes after the entirety of the faders. So DBX gets to work with a full signal while EQing that comes off of the Para EQ. They become like a one EQ block. After that, the signal follows into my Elysia envelope, which, like I said, can be set into an EQ mode for the shelving that will kind of work together with the 2 equalizers. So then I would have 3 equalizers in chain: the broad strokes or the narrow strokes, which is more like a typical paintbrush that I need to set at the first stage. And then if the lows and the highs are set into the bell, then I can't use the shelf in the Para EQ. Then I can use the shelves in the Mastering Edition envelope from Elysia. I mean, I prefer to use the Elysia envelope as a transient designer, as an attack and a sustain controller. So I would do that. But sometimes, depending on the mix, twisting the attack or release doesn't do much, and it becomes more useful to use as a shelving EQ, and then I would just do that and use it. So the next unit in chain, instead of this empty frame here, I used to have my Sonic Solutions converter that was here before the Elysia, but I found Elysia to be working better while being fed from the EQ block. It's kind of more active towards the attacks, and then the frequency response that I set here, for instance, I make something more resonant, like that, for instance, I don't know, then it also works together with the Elysia envelope so that it kind of reaches more into the attacks of a boosted frequency and stuff. So I took the converter out from this part and I put it after the Elysia envelope before the SSL. But the thing with my mastering chain is that it is not a left-right domain. It is a mid-side mastering chain. So channel 1 would be mid, channel 2 would be side, as well as mid, and the side, mid, side. But the SSL bus plus is being fed the signal from the left and the right. So let's just call this a mid-side block and call this a left side block, right? And so because my converter lives between the Elysia envelope and SSL, so does the sonic solution work in a mid-side or a left-right stereo? And to answer that question, I'll just say that I tried all the ways. I figured out that it's better to work in a left-right fashion, because then I can drive these level lights over here into the red and it starts soft clipping, because it does have a soft clipper in it that sounds very musical, and as well as it has a little boost of 12 decibels on this unit and a pad of 12 decibels for the inputs. That's the output, that's the input. And then my secondary unit is a little bit different, but these two buttons, they're very, very useful in regards to my para EQ, because like I said, this unit is not balanced, unfortunately. So it does run with a TRS balanced cables, but it has to get, 10 decibels reduction in order to be not clipping internally. By the way, when it does clip and the red lights over here, there's nothing wrong with the sound quality. It does not sound distorted, although I don't like it to get in the red zone, so I just decrease the inputs over here, and then I either do a input pad off by 12 decibels or whatever combination works. So I have the bypass of output on or off, and I have a pad of input on or off. So I have 4 combinations that can be working with a signal of 30 dBFS, 18 in a different input output resolution, or 6, which would be the quietest one. So not allowing a very loud signal to go through. And so while I had this unit in the MS fashion, the side channel being quieter than the mid channel, it doesn't reach the threshold to be soft clipped, therefore the sides are not very much affected by it, as well as this Sonic Solutions unit is more like my digital tape, so it has a little bit of hiss, and when it's acting in the mid-side mode, it is actually lopsided regarding the hiss. One channel would have more of a tss than the other channel, and if you zoom real close into the wave, you can actually tell that one channel is noisier than the other one. So that's the first reason that I've decided to put it in a left-right fashion, as well as if I put it in a left-right fashion, then I can drive the channel, left channel and the right channel, so that they kind of control the peaks a little bit better, and they get, soft clipped off in a good way, increasing the side channel a lot. Instead of just working hotter on the right channel, it'll actually work hotter on both channels. So it's easier to control, it clips off everything nicely, and then it lives after the Elysia envelope right here. Instead of being the last device in my mid-side section, it is the first device in my left-right section. I used to have it hard patched, so the signal was going directly from my Universal Audio Apollo X8. It was going to the converter, then it was going to the Bus Plus, and the Bus Plus had to work with a tape saturation signal, as well as this converter is not loud. It is calibrated to be like the tape at around 18 decibels dBFS. And if I needed to put something through my hardware inserts in the Pro Tools, the SSL had to go through the converter, which is not always the best way to do. First off, it can be fed a louder signal without it and have no noise and all that hissy stuff. So right now I run my Sonic Solutions converters through the patch bay in a through mode. So when I unplug the wires, it is not working, and when I plug them, it is in the chain. And I can actually put them anywhere in my chain if I want. I can put them before any of my units or after. But like I said, the best way for my converter to be placed after the mid side section, which is clean by design on its own, and then it gets converted, tape saturated, soft clipped, all that good stuff. And then it feeds into the SSL Bus Plus that can be put in to the stereo, delta stereo, dual mono, or mid-side mode, depending what I need. Because it's fed in the left-right, I can choose any of these modes. Before, I used to have it as a part of my mid-side chain, and it doesn't work in any other mode. It's then locked to be working in dual mono mode. The other modes, they get redundant. So now when it's fed the left and the right, I can decide if I want it to be whatever I want it to be, right? And so in dual mono right now, I get my channels to act more independently, and I've actually compared this unit to a Manly Very-Mu plugin, and I was able to replicate the correct settings so that it works similarly to that Very-Mu from Manly. Although this is not tube, this is clean, but I don't need that tubiness because I have a little bit of tape saturation from my digital converter, as well as I have a little bit coming from my 4K mode right here. So yeah, it's a little bit brighter sounding than the Very-Mu, but you know, the settings for that kind of action would probably be somewhere at like 1.5 to 1 ratio or 2. That's for the compression mode of Very-Mu if you wanted to relate. Or in the limiting mode of Very-Mu, it would be like 4, but over here it could be 3. So I'd say, you know, 1.5, 2, 3, 4 are the settings to go. I just do with a 2 and it sounds great. And then the release for that would be 0.2 seconds, but I prefer to put it in 0.15. The attack would actually have to be set at around 40 or more, which this unit doesn't have, so 40. But I prefer to put it in the 30 millisecond attack, which kind of yields a better result. And the mix knob that I prefer is from around 50 to 80%. That yields the best result. Because the tubes, they're not perfectly left-right balanced, they don't share the same voltage in them because of their design. Instead of using a classic stereo, I use it in dual mono, and it gives it a little bit of an interplay from the channels, but it's not a really huge amount because I get my left and the right a little bit clipped off with my converters after the mid-side chain. Let's summarize my chain. My signal comes from the Apollo, then it enters into my long pair EQ 4.8 in a mid-side fashion. Then I do what I need to do, and then its partner in a single block is the DBX that acts as a fine tuner of those frequency adjustment, a little bit limited to what I can do. Therefore, it's a good fine tuner, and it has a limiter, and it's easily, you know, set So again, this device is unbalanced right now. The signal that is fed into it has to be reduced a lot. Then it enters DBX, which can be then compensated up. Then it enters the Elysia envelope, which doesn't have no metering, so I cannot see what it has within the chain, if it's clipping or not. If I do a lot of like attack boost, what does it do? I don't know. So having this, reduced is actually a great thing, so that I never clip the signal in my envelope, never overload it, I should say. So after it goes to my converter, which is also quiet, that's a secondary guard for knowing that the Elysia envelope did not clip. This reduces the signal, and this is having a lower signal input as well. So this and this are a part of my mid side, and then through the patch bay it returns back to my chain as a left right, as a stereo, and the Sonic Solutions digital tape becomes my first left right unit. Then it follows into the bus plus, and then it gets fed back into my Pro Tools. And sometimes, when I need, especially when I finish my masters and they are supposed to get a little bit louder, I feed the signal from SSL into my another Sonic Solutions converter, and it has front ports, so it's a little bit inconvenient, so I have to plug wires here and there. But it can either be having the inputs taken and the outputs given, or it can actually feed from the analog, and then through its digital TOS link it can then feed the other Sonic Solutions, my fourth one, which is an optical converter that converts TOS link into SPDIF, and then SPDIF enters my Apollo X8, because Apollo X8 doesn't have TOS link, it has ADAT, which looks like the same cable, but it's actually SMUX, so it's a different design and they don't communicate on their own, so it needs some sort of a mediary, which is this Sonic Solutions optical converter here. In the end of 2025, I am willing to make a free master with your audio in it, because I am also looking for a copyright free material, and we can do a collab on it. If you are an artist, a musician, composer, or a beat maker, you can send me some of your stuff. If you provide me some of your audio, I can make you a free master, and as well I can showcase what I'm capable of doing with my equipment over here. So if you're interested, text me in the comments below. We're gonna link up, talk about this. If you like my content, please subscribe for more. Sometimes I'm busy and I'm doing some work, so I don't post very regularly, but I try to post once or twice a week. But if I get the notion of community and people talking back and forth, then I'm gonna obviously do more videos.